The air in Oxford smelled like old books and wet stone. The kind of scent that clung to your clothes and made you feel like you were trespassing in someone's memory. Emma Watson pulled her scarf tighter, dodging a gaggle of students biking past, their laughter sharp against the gray afternoon. She was here for a lecture, some lofty panel on education reform, but her mind was elsewhere. Crowds always made her itchy, like everyone was waiting for her to slip up and prove she wasn't the polished activist they expected. She ducked into a side street, her boots clicking on cobblestones, and spotted the library. Not the big, touristy one, but a smaller, hunched building with ivy strangling its walls, like it was trying to hide from the world. Inside it was all creaking wood and dusty light, the kind of place where time felt like it had tripped and never gotten back up. Emma's shoulders relaxed a fraction. Libraries were her sanctuary, always had been, even before the world knew her name. She wandered past towering shelves, her fingers brushing spines worn soft by centuries of hands. The librarian, a woman with wild curls and a name tag reading Laura, gave her a quick smile, then went back to sorting books. Emma liked that. No fuss, no stares. Just quiet. She was halfway down an aisle, skimming titles in Latin she could barely parse, when she noticed a draft. Not the usual chilly library breeze, but something sharper, like a whisper against her neck. She turned expecting to see someone, but the aisle was empty. Her pulse ticked up, that old instinct from film sets when a scene felt too still. She followed the draft, her steps slow, until she reached a corner where the shelves met a stone wall. There, half hidden by a sagging bookcase, was a door. Not a grand Gothic thing, but a plain warped slab of wood, its edges stained black like it had survived a fire. No handle, just a faint carving of a spiral, barely visible under layers of grime. Emma's first thought was to walk away. She had a lecture to prep for, a reputation to uphold. But her second thought, the one that always got her in trouble, was louder. What kind of person finds a secret door and doesn't open it? She glanced back at Laura, still buried in her books, and pressed her palm against the spiral. The wood was warm, unnaturally so, and before she could overthink it, the door clicked and swung inward, releasing a puff of air that smelled like ink and something metallic. Beyond was darkness, but not the empty kind. It was thick, like the room was holding its breath. Emma fumbled for her phone, her flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. She stepped inside and the door thudded shut behind her. Her heart lurched, but when she pushed back, the door wouldn't budge. Great. Trapped in a creepy library wing. Perfect way to spend a Tuesday. The space, Emma thought, her voice echoing slightly in the tight space. She swept her light around, revealing a narrow hallway lined with shelves that stretched into the shadows. Unlike the main library, these books weren't neatly arranged. They leaned against each other like drunks at a bar, some open, pages fluttering as if caught in a breeze. But there was no breeze. Emma's skin prickled. She stepped closer, her light catching on a book that lay open on a pedestal. Its pages turned slowly, deliberately, with no one touching them. She froze, her breath catching. "Okay, that's not normal." She reached out, half expecting the book to snap shut like a trap, but it stayed open, revealing cramped, handwritten text in a language she didn't recognize. At the bottom of the page was a single English word, scrawled in red ink, Emma. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't some forgotten storage room. This was something else, something that knew her name. "Who's there?" Emma called, her voice sharper than she meant. No answer, just the soft rustle of pages. She backed up, her flashlight beam jerking across the shelves, catching glints of gold and leather. Another book flipped open, then another, their pages turning faster now, like they were laughing at her. She spun around, heart hammering, and that's when she saw it. A figure at the edge of her light, cloaked in black, face hidden under a hood. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there. A shadow carved out of the dark. "Hey!" Emma shouted, stepping forward, her fear twisting into something closer to anger. "What is this place?" The figure tilted their head, like they were sizing her up, then melted into the shadows, gone before she could blink. She ran toward where they'd been, but there was nothing, just more shelves, more books, more whispers of pages turning. Emma's phone buzzed, making her jump. A text from her assistant. "Where are you?" "Lectures in 30. She ignored it, her eyes locked on the pedestal. The book was closed now, but a folded note sat beside it, yellowed and crisp, like it had been waiting for years. She unfolded it, her hands unsteady. In neat looping script it read, "The truth is not for the faint of heart. Find the treatise, Emma, or they will find you first." Her mouth went dry. Treatise? They? She stuffed the note in her pocket, her mind racing. This was insane. She was Emma Watson, for God's sake, not some treasure hunter in a movie. But the books, the figure, her name in that book, they were real. And something told her this wasn't a prank. She turned back to the door, banging on it until her fists ached. "Laura!" she yelled, hoping the librarian could hear her. "Anyone?" The door didn't budge, but a low groan echoed from deeper in the wing, like stone grinding against stone. Emma's light caught a flicker of movement, not a person this time, but a shelf sliding open, revealing a staircase spiraling down into the dark. Her stomach twisted. Every horror movie she'd ever seen screamed at her to run, but the note burned in her pocket, and that word treatise tugged at her like a hook. "Emma?" Laura's voice, muffled, came from the other side of the door. "Are you in there?" The door rattled and Emma's heart leapt. "Laura!" Emma shouted, pounding back. "I'm here. Get me out." The door creaked and Laura's face appeared, her eyes wide with worry. "What the hell are you doing in there?" Laura asked, her accent thick with Oxford grit. "That wing's been sealed for years. It's not safe." Emma stumbled out, her legs shaky. "You're telling me," she muttered, glancing back at the dark. The books were still now, silent like they'd never moved. But she wasn't imagining it. She couldn't be. "How do you even get in?" Laura asked, peering past her. "That door's locked tight. Always has been." Emma hesitated. If she told the truth, she'd sound unhinged. But lying felt wrong, like betraying whatever this place was. "I don't know," she said finally. "It just opened." Laura's eyes narrowed, like she didn't buy it, but she didn't push. "Come on," she said, tugging Emma toward the main library. "You've got that lecture. Let's not add missing celebrity to my day." Emma followed, her mind spinning. The note, the books, the figure, they all clawed at her, demanding answers. As they reached the main room, she glanced back one last time. The door was shut, the spiral carving barely visible. But she swore she saw a shadow move behind it, quick and gone. Outside, the air felt too bright, too normal. Emma's phone buzzed again. Another text from her assistant, but she barely saw it. Her eyes caught on a man across the street, leaning against a lamppost, his coat too heavy for the weather. He was watching her, his face half hidden by a scarf. When she blinked, he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Emma's hand closed around the note in her pocket. "Find the treatise, or they will find you first." She didn't know what it meant, not yet. But one thing was clear. Whoever they were, they already had her in their sights. And as she stepped into the lecture hall, the weight of her name scrawled in that ancient book settled over her like a storm cloud. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Emma Watson's hands were still shaking as she stood at the lecture podium, her notes a blur of ink and good intentions. The crowd was a sea of expectant faces, academics and students packed into the Oxford Hall, waiting for her to deliver some profound take on education reform. She was supposed to be inspiring, poised, the Emma they all knew from screens and speeches. But her mind was back in that hidden library wing, with its books that turned their own pages and a note that knew her name. The weight of it sat in her pocket, sharp as a blade. She stumbled through her talk, her voice catching on words like equity and opportunity, and when a professor asked a pointed question about funding, she fumbled the answer. The room felt too warm, the air too thick, like the library's shadows had followed her here. Afterward, she dodged the usual photo requests and slipped out a side door, the Oxford desk swallowing her. She needed answers, not applause. The library was only a few streets away, its ivy-choked walls looming in her memory like a dare. Laura, the librarian, had brushed off her questions earlier, but Emma wasn't buying the sealed for years line. That door had opened for her, and she needed to know why. She pulled her coat tight, her boots scuffing the wet pavement, and headed back, ignoring the buzz of her phone. Her assistant could wait. The world could wait. The library was quieter now, the evening crowd thinned to a few hunched scholars. Laura was at the desk, her curls spilling over a stack of books, her eyes flicking up as Emma approached. "You're back," Laura said, her tone a mix of surprise and something sharper, like she'd been caught. "Didn't expect to see you after that lecture." Emma forced a smile, leaning on the desk. "Yeah, well, I'm full of surprises. I need to see that wing again, Laura. Her voice was steady but her pulse wasn't. She watched Laura's face, searching for a crack in the librarian's calm. Laura's fingers stilled on a book. That place isn't safe, Emma. I told you it's been locked for years. You shouldn't have been able to get in. Her eyes darted to the side, like she was checking for eavesdroppers. There's nothing there but dust and trouble. Bullshit, Emma said, her voice low but firm. The books moved, Laura. They opened on their own. And there was a note. She hesitated, then pulled the folded paper from her pocket, holding it up but not handing it over. It had my name on it. Explain that. Laura's face tightened, her lips pressing into a thin line. She stood, grabbing a ring of keys from under the desk. Not here, she muttered, nodding toward the stacks. Come with me. Emma followed, her stomach twisting with equal parts dread and excitement. The library's main room faded behind them as they wove through aisles, the air growing heavier, like it was laced with secrets. Laura stopped at the corner where the hidden door waited, its spiral carving catching the dim light. She didn't touch it, just stood there, her hands clenched. You don't know what you're messing with, Emma, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. This wing, it's not just some forgotten storage. It's older than the library, older than Oxford. People have disappeared trying to understand it. Emma's skin prickled, but she stepped closer, her eyes locked on the door. Then why'd it open for me? She asked, her voice steady despite the chill creeping up her spine. And don't give me some ghost story. I saw a figure in there, Laura. Someone's watching me. Laura's eyes widened just for a second before she masked it. You saw someone? She asked too quickly. What did they look like? Cloaked, hooded, gone before I could blink, Emma said, watching Laura's reaction. You know something. Spill it. Laura exhaled, her shoulders sagging. I don't know everything, okay? She said, her accent thickening with frustration. But that wing, it's tied to a legend. A treatise written centuries ago, hidden because it was too dangerous. Some say it holds truths that could upend the world. Others say it's cursed. Either way, people who go looking for it don't come back the same. Emma's heart skipped. The note's words flashed in her mind. Find the treatise or they will find you first. So it's real, she said, more to herself than Laura. The treatise. That's what this is about. Laura grabbed her arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You need to walk away, Emma. Whatever you saw, whatever you found, it's not worth it. The people guarding that secret, they don't play games. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, Emma saw fear in her eyes. Emma pulled free, her jaw tight. I'm not walking away, she said. That note had my name on it. This is personal. She pushed past Laura, pressing her hand to the spiral carving. The door clicked just like before and swung open, the same metallic scent wafting out. Laura cursed under her breath but followed, muttering something about stubborn celebrities. Inside, the wing was just as Emma remembered. Shelves packed with restless books, their pages rustling like whispers. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark, catching on the pedestal where the book had been. It was gone now, replaced by a single sheet of parchment, its edges curling like it had been scorched. Emma's breath caught as she approached, Laura hovering behind her. The parchment was covered in symbols, a mix of spirals and jagged lines, with one clear sentence in English. The chosen will bear the weight of truth. Chosen? Emma said, her voice echoing in the tight space. What the hell does that mean? She turned to Laura, who was staring at the parchment like it was a bomb. You've seen this before, haven't you? Laura shook her head, but her eyes said otherwise. I've heard stories, she said, her voice unsteady. The treatise chooses people. Marks them. If your name was in that book, if this is about you, then you're in deeper than I thought. Before Emma could press her, a low hum filled the room like the air itself was vibrating. The books on the shelves stirred, their pages flipping faster, some tearing free and fluttering to the floor. Emma's phone buzzed in her pocket, and when she pulled it out, the screen glitched, a spiral symbol flashing before it went black. Her heart pounded. Okay, that's not creepy at all, she muttered, shoving the phone back in her pocket. We need to go, Laura said, grabbing Emma's sleeve. Now. But Emma was already moving, drawn to a shelf where a single book glowed faintly, its cover etched with the same spiral as the door. She reached for it, ignoring Laura's protests, and the moment her fingers touched the leather, a voice echoed through the wing, soft but clear, like it was coming from the walls themselves. You were chosen, Emma, the voice said, and her blood ran cold. The words weren't English, but she understood them, like they were carved into her bones. The room seemed to tilt, the shadows stretching, and for a split second, she saw the cloaked figure again, standing at the far end of the hall, their hood hiding their face. Then they were gone, and the books fell silent. Emma stumbled back, her breath ragged. Did you hear that? She asked, turning to Laura. The voice had said my name. Laura's face was pale, her eyes fixed on the spot where the figure had been. I didn't hear anything, she said, but her voice shook. Emma, we're leaving. This isn't a game. Emma wanted to argue, to grab the glowing book and tear through its pages, but the air felt wrong now, heavy with something she couldn't name. She followed Laura out, the door slamming shut behind them with a thud that echoed like a warning. Back in the main library, the normalcy of it, the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the rustle of pages, felt like a lie. You need to forget this, Laura said, her voice low as they reached the front desk. Pretend it never happened. For your own sake. Emma's hand closed around the note in her pocket, the parchment's words burning in her mind. The chosen will bear the weight of truth. Forget it? She said, a bitter laugh escaping her. It knows my name, Laura. How do you forget that? Laura didn't answer, just turned away, busying herself with a stack of books. Emma stepped outside, the night air sharp against her skin. Her phone buzzed again, and when she checked it, the screen was back to normal, but a new notification waited. An email, no sender, no subject. Just a single line. You can't outrun the truth. Her pulse spiked, and she scanned the street, half expecting to see the cloaked figure or the man from earlier, the one with the heavy coat. The street was empty, but the weight of eyes on her was undeniable. She shoved her phone away, her mind racing. The treatise, the voice, the symbols, they were pieces of a puzzle she didn't understand yet. But one thing was clear. Whatever she'd stumbled into, it wasn't letting her go. And as she walked away, the library's shadow stretched long behind her, whispering her name. Emma Watson's hotel room felt like a cage. The kind with plush bedding and overpriced minibar, but a cage nonetheless. She paced the carpet, her phone clutched in one hand, the mysterious note in the other. The email from last night, you can't outrun the truth, stared back from her screen, taunting her. No sender, no trace, just like the cloaked figure in the library wing. She'd barely slept, her dreams a mess of spiraling symbols and whispering books. The lecture was done, her Oxford obligations technically over, but leaving felt like running, and Emma didn't run. Not from this. She needed help, someone who knew Oxford's secrets, someone who wouldn't laugh her off. Laura was a dead end, too cagey, too scared. But during the lecture, a name had come up, muttered by a professor in the Q&A. Professor Henry Talbot, a historian who'd written about Oxford's hidden archives. If anyone could make sense of a lost treatise, it was him. Emma Googled him, finding a grainy photo of a man with wild gray hair, and a tie that looked like it had lost a fight with a soup can. His office was at a nearby college. Perfect. She grabbed her coat, ignoring her assistant's texts about flights and schedules. The truth was calling, and it wasn't waiting for her to RSVP. The college was a maze of stone corridors, all gargoyles and echoes. Emma found Henry's office tucked in a corner, the door ajar, spilling out the smell of coffee and old paper. She knocked, and a voice, gravelly but warm, called, "Come in, unless you're selling encyclopedias." She pushed the door open, finding Henry hunched over a desk buried in books and maps, his glasses perched on his forehead like they'd forgotten their job. "Professor Talbot?" Emma said, stepping inside. "I'm Emma Watson. I need your help with something weird." She cringed at how vague that sounded, but weird was the only word that fit. Henry looked up, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Well, Miss Watson," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Weird is my specialty. Sit. Tell me what's got you looking like you've seen a ghost." Emma sat, the note burning a hole in her pocket. She didn't trust him, not yet, but she was out of options. "I found a hidden wing in a library," she said, keeping her voice low. "Books that move on their own, a note with my name, and something about a treatise." She slid the note across the desk, watching his face. "Ever heard of anything like that?" Henry's smile faded as he read the note, his fingers tracing the words. "Find the treatise, or they will find you first," he murmured, his voice losing its playfulness. He set the note down, his eyes sharp now, like he was seeing her for the first time. Where exactly did you find this? Emma hesitated, then described the library, the spiral-carved door, the whispering books, the voice that called her chosen. She left out the cloaked figure, some instinct telling her to hold that back. Henry listened, his face unreadable, until she finished. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. You've stumbled into something dangerous, Miss Watson, he said. That wing, it's part of the old library sealed centuries ago. The treatise you mentioned, it's a legend among scholars. A philosophical work, supposedly written by a heretic named Elias Vorn. It claimed to unravel the nature of reality, free will, the works. Too radical for its time. They say it was burned, but rumors persist it was hidden instead. Emma's pulse quickened. Hidden where? She asked, leaning in. And who's they? Henry shrugged, but his eyes didn't match the casual gesture. Depends who you ask, he said. Some say a secret society, others say the church. Point is, people who go looking for it tend to vanish. He tapped the note. And this, your name on it, that's no coincidence. Someone or something wants you involved. Emma's stomach twisted. The voice in the wing, the email, the figure, it all felt like a net closing around her. Why me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry studied her like he was weighing how much to say. Could be your fame, he said. Could be something older, tied to your family, your bloodline. Or maybe you're just unlucky. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Either way, you're in it now. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Before Emma could answer, her phone buzzed, the screen flashing that damn spiral symbol again before settling on a new text. Stop digging, or we dig for you. Her breath caught, and she shoved the phone at Henry. Look at this, she said, her voice tight. This came last night. And just now. Henry's face darkened as he read. He stood, crossing to a cluttered shelf, and pulled out a leather-bound book, flipping to a page with a drawing of the spiral symbol. This mark, he said, his voice low, it's tied to the treatise. A warning or a claim. Whoever sent this, they're not playing. You need to be careful, Emma. Careful, Emma said, a bitter laugh escaping her. I'm being stalked by ghosts and cryptic texts. Careful's not cutting it. She stood, pacing the small office. I need to know what this treatise says, Henry. If it's real, if it's worth all this. Henry watched her, his expression unreadable. It's real, he said finally. But finding it means crossing people who've killed to keep it buried. You sure you're ready for that? Emma didn't answer, her mind racing. She wasn't ready, not really, but the note, the voice, her name in that book, they weren't giving her a choice. I'll take my chances, she said, meeting his gaze. Where do I start? Henry sighed, scribbling an address on a scrap of paper. There's an archive, he said. Not public, but I know a way in. Meet me there tomorrow midnight. And Emma, don't tell anyone. Not your assistant, not that librarian. Trust is a luxury you can't afford. Emma nodded, pocketing the address. She was halfway to the door when a crash stopped her cold. Her hotel room, she realized, her heart lurching. She'd left her bag there, her laptop, everything. She sprinted out, ignoring Henry's shout to wait, and caught a cab to her hotel, her mind a blur of panic. The lobby was too bright, the elevator too slow. When she reached her room, the door was ajar, the lock splintered. Inside was chaos. Her clothes were strewn across the floor. Her laptop screen cracked, its files deleted. Her bag was upside down, papers scattered. And on the mirror, written in what looked like ash, was a single word, cease. Emma's knees buckled, but she caught herself, her fear hardening into anger. Whoever they were, they thought they could scare her off. They were wrong. She grabbed her phone, dialing Laura, her only link to the library. It went to voicemail and Emma's gut twisted. She needed answers and Laura was hiding something. As she started cleaning the mess, her fingers brushed a photo under the bed. Old and yellowed, its edges curling. It showed a group of scholars in Oxford robes, standing in front of the library. In the corner, circled in red ink, was a face that stopped her heart. Hers or someone who looked exactly like her, staring out from a photo that had to be centuries old. Emma's breath hitched, the room spinning. This wasn't just about a treatise anymore. This was about her, her past, maybe her blood. She stuffed the photo in her pocket, her resolve steeling. Henry's archive was her next step. But the photo changed everything. Whoever was watching her, they weren't just guarding a secret. They knew her maybe better than she knew herself. And as she stepped into the hall, The echo of that voice from the wing lingered. You were chosen. The words felt like a brand, and Emma knew deep down there was no turning back. Thank you for listening to these incredible stories. Our team would really appreciate it if you give us a like and comment. Your opinion is very important to us. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed. Emma Watson's hotel room was a crime scene minus the tape. Her belongings gutted and the word "C" scrawled on the mirror like a bad movie prop. She stood frozen, the old photo from under the bed clutched in her hand, her face staring back from a centuries-old image. It wasn't just her face, though. It was the way the woman stood, shoulders squared, eyes sharp, like she knew something the others in the photo didn't. Emma's stomach churned. This wasn't a coincidence. The treatise, the library wing, her name in that book, they were threads in a web she'd stumbled into, and someone was pulling the strings. She stuffed the photo in her pocket, next to the note that started it all, and grabbed her phone. Laura still wasn't answering, and Emma's patience was fraying. The librarian knew more than she was letting on, and Emma wasn't in the mood for games. She called again, pacing the rec room, and when voicemail kicked in she snapped, "Laura, it's Emma. My room's trashed and I found something that makes no sense. Call me back or I'm coming to you." She hung up, her heart pounding. Professor Henry's midnight archive plan was hours away, and waiting felt like surrender. The hotel staff were useless, muttering about police reports and insurance while Emma packed what was left of her things. She checked out, ignoring their apologies, and headed for a coffee shop near the library. The Oxford streets were alive with evening bustle, students laughing, tourists snapping photos, but Emma felt like she was moving through a different world, one where shadows had eyes. She settled into a corner booth, ordered a black coffee, and spread the photo and note on the table, staring at them like they might confess. The note's warning, "Find the treatise or they will find you first," felt heavier now, and the photo's impossible twin made her skin crawl. Who was she? An ancestor? A trick? And who were they? Her phone buzzed and she flinched, expecting another cryptic threat. It was Laura, finally. Emma answered, her voice tight. "About time, Laura. What the hell's going on? My room's destroyed and I found a photo that looks like me, but it's ancient. Start talking." Laura's voice was hushed, like she was hiding. "Emma, I told you to leave it alone," she said, her accent thick with strain. "Where are you? We need to meet." "Not at the library. Somewhere public." Emma's gut twisted. Laura sounded scared, but there was something else, a dodge in her tone. "The coffee shop's fine," Emma said, giving the address. "Get here. Now." She hung up, her eyes scanning the room. A guy in a hoodie lingered by the counter, his back to her, and for a second, she swore he was watching her reflection in the glass. She blinked and he was gone, just another customer. Paranoia was setting in, but after the break-in, she wasn't taking chances. Laura arrived 20 minutes later, her curls tucked under a knit cap, her eyes darting like she expected trouble. She slid into the booth, her hands clasped tight. "You shouldn't have gone back to that wing, Emma," she said, her voice low. "I tried to warn you." Emma leaned forward, her coffee forgotten. "Warn me?" she said, her voice sharp. "You knew about the treatise, the books, all of it, and you played dumb. My name's in this, Laura. My face is in a photo from God knows when. Stop hiding and tell me what you know." Laura's jaw tightened and she glanced around, like the walls might be listening. "I'm not hiding," she said, but her eyes said otherwise. "I'm protecting you. That wing, it's not just a legend. It's guarded. By people who've been guarding it for centuries. I'm part of them, Emma. Or I was." Emma's heart sank, betrayal cutting through her like a blade. "You're one of them?" she said, her voice rising. "The ones who trashed my room? The ones sending me creepy messages?" She shoved the photo across the table. "Explain this, Laura. Why do I look like her?" Laura's face paled as she studied the photo, her fingers trembling. "I don't know," she said, but it wasn't convincing. "The Guardians were sworn to keep the treatise hidden. It's dangerous, Emma. Not just ideas, but power. Changes people, twists them. I didn't want you caught in it, but you wouldn't listen." Emma stood, her chair scraping the floor. "You let me walk into that wing," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "You knew it wasn't safe and you let me go. Why? What's your game?" Laura grabbed her arm, her grip desperate. "I didn't know it would choose you," she said, her voice cracking. "The treatise, it marks people. I thought you'd walk away, but it opened for you. That's never happened, not in my lifetime." You're different, Emma. I don't know why, but you are. Emma pulled free, her mind racing. Different. Chosen. The words from the wing echoed, mocking her. She wanted to scream, to shake Laura until the truth spilled out, but the coffee shop was too public, too normal for this madness. I'm done with half answers, she said, grabbing the photo and note. You're either with me or against me, Laura. Choose. Before Laura could respond, Emma's phone lit up, the spiral symbol flashing again, followed by a new text. The archive is a trap. Run. Her breath caught, and she showed it to Laura, whose eyes widened. Henry, Emma said, her voice barely a whisper. He told me to meet him at an archive tonight. How do they know? Laura's face hardened. Because they're always watching, she said. You need to get out of Oxford, Emma. Tonight. She stood, pulling her cap lower, but Emma grabbed her wrist. Not without answers, Emma said, her voice fierce. You owe me that much. Tell me where the treatise is. Now. Laura hesitated, then sighed, her shoulders slumping. There's a vault, she said, her voice barely audible. Under the library. The guardians protect it, but I don't know how to get in. There's a map hidden in the wing. I can help you find it, but if they catch us, we're both dead. Emma's pulse raced. A vault. A map. It was something a thread to pull. Fine, she said. Let's go. But if you're lying, Laura, I'll make sure everyone knows what you are. They left the coffee shop, the night air sharp against Emma's skin. The library wasn't far, but every shadow felt alive, every passerby a threat. Inside, the main room was empty, the lights dimmed for the night. Laura led her to the hidden door, her keys jangling as she unlocked it. The wing was just as Emma remembered. Shelves groaning with restless books, the air thick with whispers. Laura moved fast, scanning the shelves, while Emma's flashlight caught on a book with a spiral etched into its spine. She reached for it, but a noise stopped her, a soft thud from the darkness. They're here, Laura whispered, her eyes wide. We need to move. She yanked a book from the shelf, revealing a folded parchment, its edges worn. The map. Emma grabbed it, her heart pounding, but before she could open it, the cloaked figure from her first visit stepped into the light, their hood hiding their face. A blade gleamed in their hand and Emma's breath caught. Run! Laura shouted, shoving Emma toward the door. Emma stumbled, the map clutched tight, as the figure lunged. Laura threw a book at them, buying a second, and Emma sprinted for the exit, her boots slipping on the stone floor. The door slammed shut behind her, Laura still inside, and a scream echoed, cut off too fast. Emma's knees buckled, but she forced herself to move, bursting into the main library. The map was in her hand, the vault her only lead, but Laura's scream haunted her. She'd trusted her just for a moment and now she was gone. Or worse. Emma's phone buzzed, another text. You can't save them all. Her blood ran cold. The guardians weren't just watching. They were playing with her and she was running out of moves. She stumbled outside, the map burning in her grip. The archive with Henry was a trap, Laura was compromised, and the vault was her only shot. But as she unfolded the map, her eyes caught a symbol in the corner. The same spiral from the wing, and below it, a single word, Emma. The vault wasn't just a hiding place. It was waiting for her. And as she stared at the map, the library door creaked open behind her, a faint glow spilling out, beckoning her back. Emma Watson's breath fogged in the Oxford night, her hands trembling as she gripped the map, its spiral symbol and her name staring back like a challenge. Laura's scream still rang in her ears, cut off by the library wing's door slamming shut. The guardians had her, or worse, and Emma's gut churned with guilt and fury. She'd trusted Laura, just enough to follow her back into that cursed wing. And now she was alone, the map her only lead. The text from moments ago, you can't save them all, burned in her mind. A taunt from the shadows pulling her strings. She scanned the street, half expecting the cloaked figure to emerge, but it was just students and streetlights, the world oblivious to her unraveling. Her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. The vault awaits, chosen. Abandon it and she dies. Emma's heart lurched. Laura. They were using her as bait, but the map in her hand, with its cryptic lines and symbols, pointed to a vault under the library. It was a trap, obviously, but walking away meant abandoning Laura and the treatise, the thing that had her name written all over it, literally. She stuffed the map in her pocket and dialed Professor Henry, her only ally, even if his archive plan was compromised. The call went straight to voicemail. Damn it, Henry, she muttered, her voice shaking. Where are you? She couldn't wait for him. The library loomed across the street, its ivy strangling the stone like it was guarding its secrets. Emma's legs moved before her brain caught up, carrying her back to the main entrance. The door was locked, but the map had shown a side gate, hidden behind a crumbling statue. She found it, rusted but loose, and slipped through, her flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The library's side courtyard was a tangle of weeds and shadows, the air heavy with that same metallic scent from the wing. Her pulse hammered as she followed the map's path to a stone well, its cover etched with the spiral symbol. Of course, she thought, a well. Because this couldn't get any creepier. The cover was heavy, but it shifted with a groan, revealing a spiral staircase descending into blackness. Emma's stomach twisted, every horror movie instinct screaming at her to run. But Laura's scream, the photo of her doppelganger, the voice calling her chosen, they pushed her forward. She took a breath and started down, the stairs slick under her boots. The air grew colder, thicker, like she was sinking into the earth's secrets. At the bottom, her flashlight caught on a stone door, its surface carved with symbols that matched the map. She pressed her hand to the center, and the door rumbled open, revealing a chamber lit by flickering torches. The vault was massive, its walls lined with shelves that stretched into the dark, packed with scrolls and books that seemed to hum with their own pulse. In the center stood a stone table, and on it, a single manuscript, its cover glowing faintly, the spiral symbol pulsing like a heartbeat. Emma's breath caught. The treatise. It had to be. She stepped forward, her boots echoing, but a noise behind her made her spin. Professor Henry stood in the doorway, his wild hair haloed by torchlight, his face grim. Emma, Henry said, his voice low, you shouldn't be here. His eyes flicked to the manuscript, and for a second she saw something in them, not fear but hunger. You're late, Henry, Emma said, her voice sharp. And your archive tip was a bust. Someone knew. She held up her phone, showing the text about the trap. Care to explain? Henry's face tightened, but he stepped closer, his hands raised. I didn't set you up, he said. I got a message too, warning me to stay away. I came to find you. This vault, it's the heart of it all. That manuscript, it's part of the treatise, but it's not safe. Emma's eyes narrowed. Part of it, she said, stepping toward the table. What's it say, Henry? Why's my name in this? She reached for the manuscript, but a low rumble shook the vault, dust raining from the ceiling. The shelves stirred, books shifting, some falling open, their pages flipping wildly. Henry grabbed her arm, pulling her back. We need to go, he said, his voice urgent. The Guardians, they know you're here. But Emma yanked free, her hand closing on the manuscript. It was warm, almost alive, and as she opened it, a single page glowed, covered in text she couldn't read, except for one line in English. The chosen will break or bend. Before she could process it, the vault's entrance exploded inward, stone shards flying. The cloaked figure from the wing stepped through, their blade gleaming, but this time they weren't alone. Two more figures flanked them, their faces hidden under hoods, moving like predators. Emma's heart pounded, but she clutched the manuscript, backing toward Henry. We're not dying here, she said, her voice fierce. Help me. Henry hesitated, his eyes darting between her and the Guardians. Then he moved, grabbing a torch from the wall and swinging it at the nearest figure. Go, he shouted, pointing to a narrow tunnel behind the table. It's your only shot. Emma ran, the manuscript tucked under her arm, the map still in her pocket. The tunnel was tight, the air stale, but she pushed forward, Henry's footsteps behind her. The Guardians' blades scraped the stone, their pursuit relentless. The tunnel spit them out in a basement, the library's underbelly, all pipes and shadows. Emma's lungs burned, but she didn't stop, following the map's faint lines to a rusted hatch. Henry helped her pry it open, and they stumbled into an alley, the Oxford night swallowing them. Emma's phone buzzed, another text. You've taken what's ours. Return it or she pays. Attached was a photo of Laura, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with fear. Emma's knees buckled, but Henry caught her. We'll save her, he said, his voice steady. But that manuscript, it's the key. We need to decode it, figure out what they're protecting. Emma nodded, her resolve hardening. But as she opened the manuscript again, a new horror hit. The page with her name was gone, torn out, and in its place was a single word, scrawled in fresh ink, traitor. She looked at Henry, his face unreadable in the dark, and a chill ran through her. Someone had been close enough to tamper with it, and Henry had been right behind her. Trust was a luxury, he'd said, and now she wondered if he was playing her too. They moved to a safe spot, a dingy pub Henry knew, its noise a shield against prying ears. Emma spread the manuscript on the table, its pages heavy with secrets. Henry pointed to a symbol, his voice low. This ties to Elias Vaughan's work, he said. It's about free will, how it's an illusion. If this got out, it could unravel everything, governments, religions, you name it. Emma's mind spun. Free will. The chosen. Her face in that photo. It was all connected, but the pieces didn't fit, not yet. She looked at Henry, her voice cold. If you're one of them, Henry, I'll find out. And you'll regret it. He met her gaze, unflinching. I'm not, he said. But someone is. And they're closer than you think. He nodded to her phone, which had lit up with a new message, no sender. Look behind you. Emma spun, her heart in her throat, but the pub was just drunks and chatter. When she turned back, Henry was flipping through the manuscript, his fingers lingering on a page that hadn't glowed before. It was a map, different from hers, leading to another vault. And at its center, in tiny script, was her name again, circled in red. Emma's blood ran cold. The Guardians weren't just chasing her. They were leading her. And the vault was only the beginning. As she stared at the new map, the pub's noise faded, and a faint whisper echoed in her mind, the same voice from the wing. You were chosen. But for what, she didn't know, and the answer was waiting in the dark. Emma Watson's hands were steady, but her heart wasn't. As she sat in the dim pub, the manuscript open on the table like a bomb waiting to go off. The new map inside it, with her name circled in red, felt like a leash tightening around her neck. Professor Henry's words echoed in her head. Someone is closer than you think. She didn't trust him, not fully, not after the manuscript's missing page and that word, traitor, scrawled in fresh ink. The Guardians were playing a game and Emma was their pawn, but the photo of Laura, bound and terrified, burned in her mind. She couldn't walk away. Not when every step deeper into this mystery felt like her only shot at saving her. The pub's chatter was a low hum, masking their conversation, but Emma's eyes kept darting to the door, expecting a cloaked figure to slink in. Her phone sat silent, but the last text, "Look behind you," had her nerves on edge. She leaned across the table, her voice low. Henry, she said, leveling her gaze, if you're holding out on me, now's the time to come clean. This map, my name, it's not random. What aren't you telling me? Henry's face was unreadable, his fingers tracing the manuscript's new map. I've told you what I know, Emma, he said, his voice calm but strained. The treatise, Elias Vaughan's work, it's about free will or the lack of it. It claims our choices are scripted, that reality bends to a design. If it's real, it's a weapon. He paused, his eyes flicking to hers. Your name in it, that's what I don't understand. It's like you're part of the design. Emma's stomach twisted. Part of the design. The voice in the wing, you were chosen, rang in her ears, and the photo of her doppelganger, centuries old, loomed in her memory. She wanted to laugh it off, call it nonsense, but the evidence was piling up, and denial wasn't an option. She opened the manuscript, her fingers brushing the glowing page. The text was still unreadable, all spirals and jagged lines, but one phrase stood out in English. The chosen will break or bend. It felt like a warning or a prophecy, and she hated both options. What's this mean, Henry? She asked, tapping the phrase. Break or bend? And don't give me vague scholar crap. I need answers. Henry sighed, rubbing his temples. It's Vaughan's philosophy, he said. The treatise says truth breaks most people, shatters their sense of control. But some bend, adapt, wield the truth instead. The Guardians believe it's too dangerous for anyone to know, so they bury it. If you're chosen, they think you'll either crack under the weight or become a threat. Emma's jaw tightened. So I'm their guinea pig, she said, her voice bitter. Great. She flipped to the new map, its lines pointing to another vault, this one outside Oxford in some forgotten chapel. We need to get there, she said. If it's another piece of the treatise, it might tell us how to save Laura. Henry hesitated, his eyes darting to the pub's entrance. Emma, he said, his voice low, the Guardians aren't just some cult. They're connected, powerful. If they have Laura, they're watching us now. Going to that vault, it's what they want. Emma's blood ran cold, but she leaned closer, her voice fierce. Then we outsmart them, Henry. They're dangling Laura like bait, but I'm not leaving her to die. You in or out? Henry met her gaze, his expression hard. And he said, but we do this my way. No rushing in. We decode the map, plan our move. He pulled a notebook from his bag, sketching the map symbols. These are old, he said, tied to Vorn's cipher. If we crack it, we'll know what we're walking into. Emma nodded, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying Laura's scream, the cloaked figure's blade, the word traitor. She didn't trust Henry completely, but she needed his knowledge. As they worked, her phone buzzed and she flinched, expecting another threat. It was worse. A news alert, her name in bold. Emma Watson linked to Oxford vandalism. The article claimed she trashed her hotel room, with blurry photos of the damage and that word cease on the mirror. Her heart sank. The Guardians weren't just hunting her. They were dismantling her life. They're trying to discredit me, she said, showing Henry the article. If I look unhinged, no one will believe me about the treatise. Henry's face darkened. Classic move, he said. Smear the messenger. You need to stay off the grid, Emma. No social media, no public appearances. They'll use anything against you. Emma's fists clenched. She'd built her career on being a voice, not a victim. And now they were silencing her. Fine, she said, her voice cold. Let them try. She turned back to the map, her resolve hardening, but a flicker of movement caught her eye. A shadow outside the pub's window, gone when she looked. Her pulse spiked and she stood, grabbing the manuscript. We're not safe here, she said. Let's move. Henry nodded, packing his notes, and they slipped out a side exit, the Oxford night swallowing them. They headed for Henry's car, parked in a quiet alley, but as they approached, Emma froze. The driver's side window was smashed, and a single spiral symbol was scratched into the door. Henry cursed, checking the car, but nothing was stolen. It's a warning, he said, his voice tight. They're close. Emma's eyes scanned the alley, her hand on the manuscript. Then let's give them something to chase, she said. Her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. They drove to a motel on the city's edge, a rundown place where no one asked questions. Inside, they spread the map and manuscript on a wobbly table, the room's flickering light casting shadows that felt alive. Henry worked on the cipher, muttering about Vorn's patterns, while Emma studied the manuscript's glowing page. The phrase, the chosen will break or bend, stuck with her. Rosemary's voice, low and urgent, echoed in her head. You were chosen. Her phone buzzed again, a new text. She's alive. For now. Return the manuscript. Emma's stomach lurched and she showed Henry, whose face grim. We're running out of time, he said. If we don't get to that vault, Laura's gone. Emma nodded, her mind racing. The manuscript's ideas, free will as an illusion, were starting to sink in, and they scared her more than the Guardians. If Vorn was right, her choices, her fight, might be scripted, but she refused to believe it. She'd save Laura, find the treatise, and prove them wrong. But as she looked at Henry, his eyes fixed on the map, a new fear crept in. The missing page, the word traitor, the Guardian's uncanny knowledge, it all pointed to a leak. Henry was her only ally, but trust was a gamble, and the stakes were climbing. They cracked the cipher just before dawn, the map symbols revealing the chapel's location and a warning. The vault tests the chosen. Emma's heart pounded. Another test, another trap, but she was ready. Or so she thought. As they packed up, Henry's phone rang and he stepped outside to take it, his voice hushed. Emma watched through the window, her unease growing. When he returned, his face was pale and he avoided her eyes. We need to go, he said, grabbing his keys. Now. Emma followed, the manuscript heavy in her bag. But as they stepped into the motel parking lot, a figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked and hooded, their blade catching the first light of dawn. Emma's breath caught, but the figure didn't attack. They dropped something at their feet, a folded cloth, and vanished into the dark. Emma approached, her hands shaking, and unfolded it. Inside was Laura's knit cap, stained with blood, and a note. The vault is your last chance. Choose wisely, Emma. Her knees buckled, but she caught herself, fury overtaking fear. The Guardians were close, too close, and Henry's call, his evasiveness, gnawed at her. As they climbed into the car, the manuscript's words echoed, break or bend. Emma wasn't breaking, not yet, but the truth was heavier than she'd imagined, and the vault was waiting to test her. What she didn't see as they drove away was the tiny camera hidden in the motel room, its lens glinting, watching her every move. Emma Watson's fingers tightened around Laura's blood-stained knit cap, the weight of it heavier than the manuscript in her bag. The note inside, "The vault is your last chance," was a blade held to her throat, and the Guardian's game was closing in. She sat in the passenger seat of Professor Henry's car, the Oxford dawn smearing gray across the sky as they sped toward the chapel marked on the manuscript's map. Henry's knuckles were white on the wheel, his face a mask of focus, but Emma's trust in him was fraying. That hushed phone call at the motel, the way he'd avoided her eyes, it all screamed secrets. The word traitor scrawled in the manuscript wasn't just a warning. It was a seed of doubt, and it was sprouting fast. Her phone buzzed, another news alert. Emma Watson's Oxford scandal deepens. The article spun lies about her mental state, citing anonymous sources and grainy photos of her trashed hotel room. The Guardians were dismantling her reputation, painting her as unhinged to bury her story. She shoved the phone in her pocket, her jaw tight. "They think they can silence me," she said, her voice low but fierce. "They're wrong." Henry glanced at her, his eyes unreadable. "They're not just silencing you, Emma," he said, his voice clipped. "They're erasing you. The Guardians, they're not some ragtag cult. They've got reach, power. Oxford's elite, politicians, scholars, they're in it or they turn a blind eye. You're not just fighting shadows. You're fighting a machine." Emma's stomach churned. A machine. The idea that the Guardians weren't just cloaked creeps, but a network woven into the city's bones made her feel small, exposed. "Then why haven't they killed me?" she asked, her voice sharper than she meant. "They've had chances. Why the games?" Henry's grip on the wheel tightened. "Because you're chosen," he said, echoing the voice from the library wing. "The treatise marks people, uses them. Killing you might break whatever plan it's got. Or maybe they're just toying with you." He didn't look at her, and the silence that followed was heavy, like he was holding something back. Emma's mind raced, replaying every moment. The books that moved, her name in red ink, the photo of her doppelganger. The manuscript's claim, free will as an illusion, gnawed at her. If Henry was right, if the Guardians were this powerful, she needed more than his half-answers. She needed someone else, someone outside their web. As they pulled into a quiet village, the chapel's spire looming in the distance, she made a decision. "I'm calling someone," she said, pulling out her phone. "A journalist. Someone who can dig into this without being bought." Henry's head snapped toward her. "That's a mistake, Emma," he said, his voice sharp. "You bring in outsiders, you paint a target on them. The Guardians will crush anyone who gets close." "Maybe," Emma said, her voice cold. "But I'm done playing by their rules." She scrolled through her contacts, landing on Jacob Rees, a freelance journalist she'd met at a conference. He was scrappy, skeptical, and owed her a favor after she'd tipped him off to a story years ago. She texted him, "Need you in Oxford. Big story, dangerous. You in?" She hit send, ignoring Henry's scowl. The chapel was a crumbling relic, its stained glass cracked, its walls choked with ivy. The map led to a crypt beneath it, and Emma's pulse quickened as they approached. The air was thick with damp earth and something sharper, like the library wing's metallic tang. Henry pried open the crypt's door, revealing a stone staircase spiraling down. Emma's flashlight caught on symbols carved into the walls, spirals and jagged lines, just like the manuscript. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "The vault." They descended, the air growing colder, heavier, like it was pressing back. At the bottom was a chamber, smaller than the library's vault, its walls lined with stone slabs etched with more symbols. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a single page glowing faintly, its edges curling like it was alive. Emma's breath caught. Another piece of the treatise. She stepped forward, but Henry grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "Wait," he said, his voice low. "Look at the floor." Her flashlight beam revealed a pattern of tiles, some marked with spirals, others blank. "A trap," Henry said. "Step on the wrong one and we're done." Emma's heart pounded, but she studied the tiles, matching them to the map's cipher. She took a breath and stepped, her boot landing on a spiral tile. Nothing happened. She moved again, then again, Henry following until they reached the pedestal. The page was covered in Vorn's script, but one line stood out. "The chosen carries the lie of freedom." Emma's skin prickled. It was the same idea, free will as a sham, but it hit harder now, like a mirror held to her life. She reached for the page, but a low rumble shook the chamber, and the entrance slammed shut, sealing them in. Henry cursed, rushing to the door, but it wouldn't budge. Emma's phone buzzed, a new text from Jacob. "I'm in Oxford. Where are you?" She typed a quick reply, "Crypt under Chapel Village outskirts. Hurry." But as she hit send, a scraping noise filled the chamber, and a cloaked figure stepped from a hidden alcove, their blade gleaming. "You don't listen, Chosen," the figure said, their voice muffled, distorted, like it wasn't entirely human. "The page stays here. So do you." They lunged, and Emma dove behind the pedestal, the blade sparking against stone. Henry swung his flashlight, catching the figure's arm, but they barely flinched, their strength unnatural. Emma clutched the page, her mind racing. "The tiles," she shouted, her voice echoing. "Henry, the pattern." She scrambled across the floor, stepping on the spiral tiles in reverse, praying she'd read the cipher right. The figure pursued, their blades slicing the air, but a click echoed, and a hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a tunnel. "Go!" Emma yelled, shoving Henry toward it. They ran, the figure's footsteps pounding behind, but the tunnel was narrow, slowing their attacker. They emerged in a field, the chapel a shadow in the dawn. Emma's lungs burned, the page and manuscript safe in her bag, but her relief was short-lived. Her phone buzzed again, a photo from an unknown number. Jacob tied up in a dark room, his face bruised. The caption read, "One more step and he's next." Emma's knees buckled, guilt crashing over her. She'd pulled Jacob into this, and now he was paying for it. Henry grabbed her shoulder, his voice urgent. "We need to move, Emma. They're not stopping." But Emma's eyes were on the page in her hand, its words searing. The lie of freedom. She'd chosen to fight, to call Jacob, but the Guardians were always ahead, like her choices were scripted. Her resolve hardened, but doubt crept in. Was she fighting a machine, or was she part of it? As they fled to Henry's car, Emma's phone lit up with another text, this one from Jacob's number. "Don't trust him." She glanced at Henry, his face grim as he started the engine, and her heart sank. The Guardians were closing in, Jacob was in danger, and the treatise's truth was tearing her apart. But the new vault's page held a clue, a single symbol pointing to another location, and Emma knew she had to keep going, even if it meant losing everything. What she didn't see as they sped away was the cloaked figure watching from the chapel's spire, holding a list with her name marked in red, labeled, "Silenced." Emma Watson's hand shook as she clutched her phone, Jacob's text searing into her. "Don't trust him." The words pointed straight at Professor Henry, who sat beside her in the car, his eyes fixed on the road as they sped away from the chapel. The new treatise page, tucked in her bag with the manuscript, felt like a live wire, its words, the lie of freedom, gnawing at her. Jacob was captured, Laura was gone, and the Guardians were always one step ahead, like they knew her every move. Henry's hushed calls, his evasiveness, the word traitor in the manuscript, it all piled up, and Emma's trust was crumbling. The Oxford dawn was cold, the air sharp with the promise of rain, but the real storm was inside her, tearing at her resolve. She glanced at Henry, his face grim, his knuckles white on the wheel. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos in her chest. "And don't bullshit me, Henry. Jacob's in trouble because of me. I need to know you're not part of this." Henry's jaw tightened, but he didn't look at her. "Safe house," he said, his voice clipped. "Friend of mine off the grid. We'll decode that page, figure out the next vault. As for your journalist, I warned you. Outsiders get burned." He sounded angry, but there was something else, a dodge in his tone that made her skin crawl. Emma's hand closed around her phone, Jacob's warning looping in her mind. She typed a quick reply, hoping he could see it. "Hang on, Jacob. I'm coming." But as she hit send, her screen flashed with the spiral symbol, then went black. Her heart lurched. "They're in my phone," she said, her voice shaking. "The Guardians, they're hacking me, tracking me." She turned to Henry, her eyes narrowing. "Or someone's feeding them intel." Henry's gaze flicked to her, then back to the road. "You're paranoid, Emma," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm not your enemy. The Guardians are. Focus on the page, the vault. That's how we save your friend." "Paranoid?" Emma snapped, her voice rising. My room's trashed, my reputation's tanked, and now Jacob's tied up somewhere because I called him. Someone's selling me out, Henry, and you're the only one here. She hated how it sounded, but the doubt was too loud to ignore. The manuscript, the missing page, his convenient timing, it all pointed to him. Henry pulled into a narrow lane, the car rattling over gravel. He stopped outside a rundown cottage, its windows dark, and turned to her, his eyes hard. You want to accuse me, fine, he said. But I'm the one keeping you alive. You go rogue, you're dead, and so's your friend. Now get inside. We've got work to do. Emma hesitated, her hand on the door. Every instinct screamed to run, but Jacob's bruised face, Laura's bloodied cap, they anchored her. She followed Henry into the cottage, the air musty, the walls lined with books and maps. A single lamp flickered, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. Henry spread the new page on a table, its glowing text unreadable except for that damning line. The lie of freedom. Emma's stomach twisted. If Vaughan was right, if her choices were scripted, then fighting the Guardians was just playing their game. But she wasn't ready to believe that, not yet. She pulled out the manuscript, flipping to the map from the last vault. The new page's symbol, a jagged spiral, matched one on the map, pointing to a site in Oxford's outskirts, an old manor. Another vault, she said, her voice low. We need to go there, Henry. If it's got answers, it's worth the risk. Henry nodded, but his eyes were on his phone, a message lighting up the screen before he shoved it in his pocket. Emma's blood ran cold. Who was that? She asked, stepping closer. You're getting texts, Henry, and I'm getting threats. Show me. He stood, his face tight. It's nothing, he said, but his hand hovered over his pocket, protective. Emma lunged, grabbing the phone before he could stop her. The screen showed a single message, no sender. Keep her close. Deliver by midnight. Her heart stopped. Deliver. It was him. Henry was the traitor. You bastard, Emma said, her voice shaking with rage. You're with them. She backed away, clutching the manuscript, her eyes darting for an exit. Henry stepped forward, his hands raised, but his face wasn't guilty, just tired. It's not what you think, Emma, he said, his voice low. They've got my daughter. If I don't play along, she's dead. I'm trying to help you, but I'm trapped too. Emma's anger faltered, but she didn't lower her guard. Your daughter? She said, her voice sharp. Convenient. Why should I believe you? She was halfway to the door, the manuscript heavy in her bag, when a crash outside stopped her. Footsteps, heavy and fast, circled the cottage. The Guardians. Henry's eyes widened. They're here, he said, grabbing a poker from the fireplace. We need to move. Now. Emma hesitated, Jacob's warning clashing with Henry's plea, but the door burst open, and two cloaked figures stormed in, blades drawn. Emma dove behind a bookshelf, Henry swinging the poker, but the Guardians were fast, their movements eerily precise. Emma's heart pounded as she crawled toward a back window, the manuscript banging against her side. One Guardian lunged at Henry, their blade slicing his arm, and he grunted, stumbling. Emma's instincts screamed to run, but she couldn't leave him, not if he was telling the truth. She grabbed a book from the shelf, hurling it at the Guardian's head, buying Henry a second to scramble free. Out the window! She shouted, smashing the glass with the chair. They climbed through, glass cutting Emma's palm, and ran into the woods behind the cottage, the Guardian's footsteps pounding behind. The manuscript's weight slowed her, but she clung to it, its pages her only leverage. They reached a stream, its banks slick with mud, and Henry pulled her down, hiding in the reeds. The Guardians passed, their cloaks blending with the dawn, but Emma's relief was short-lived. Her phone, somehow still working, buzzed with a new text. You can't hide, Chosen. The manor waits. Emma's breath caught. The manor, the next vault. They were hurting her, just like Henry said. She turned to him, his arm bleeding, his face pale. If you're lying about your daughter, she said, her voice cold, I'll end you myself. But if you're not, help me get to that manor. For Jacob, for Laura, for your kid. Henry nodded, his eyes haunted. I'm with you, he said, but we're out of time. They'll be waiting. He pointed to the page in her bag. Its glow faint but steady. That's not just a clue, Emma. It's a prediction. Vaughan wrote about you, your choices, centuries ago. You're walking his path. Emma's skin prickled, the treatise's words hitting harder. The lie of freedom. She wanted to scream, to tear the page apart, But Jacob's life, Laura's, maybe Henry's daughter's, depended on her. She stood, her hand bleeding, her resolve steeling. "Then let's walk it," she said, her voice fierce. "But I'm writing the ending." As they moved toward the manor, the woods silent but alive with threat, Emma's phone buzzed again, a final message. "The chosen will fall." She deleted it, her heart pounding, but the treatise page in her bag seemed to pulse, and for a split second, she swore she saw her own handwriting in its margins, predicting her next step. The manor loomed ahead, its windows dark, and Emma knew the guardians were waiting, but so was the truth, and she was ready to face it or die trying. Emma Watson's boots crunched on the frost-covered grass as she and Professor Henry approached the manor, its silhouette looming against the Oxford dawn like a predator waiting to strike. The treatise page in her bag felt heavier with every step, its words, the lie of freedom, twisting in her mind like a splinter. Jacob's warning, "Don't trust him," still burned, but Henry's story about his daughter, held hostage by the guardians, had cracked her doubt just enough to keep him at her side. His arm was bandaged now, the blood from the cottage fight stanched, but his face was pale, his eyes darting to every shadow. Emma's own hand throbbed, the cut from the window glass a sharp reminder of how close they'd come to dying. The manor was the next vault, the next piece of the treatise, and maybe the key to saving Jacob and Laura. But the guardian's last text, "The chosen will fall," hung over her like a guillotine. The manor was a decaying giant, its windows boarded, its stone walls choked with ivy that seemed to writhe in the faint light. The map from the manuscript pointed to a cellar entrance, hidden behind a collapsed fountain. Emma's flashlight caught on the spiral symbol etched into the fountain's base, and her stomach twisted. Every symbol, every clue, felt like a trap designed just for her. She glanced at Henry, his breath fogging in the cold. "If this goes south," she said, her voice low, "you'd better not flake. I'm trusting you, but only so far." Henry's eyes met hers, haunted but steady. "I'm not flaking, Emma," he said, his voice rough. "My daughter's life's on the line too. Let's get this done." He knelt by the fountain, prying at the stone until a slab shifted, revealing a rusted hatch. Emma's pulse quickened as they descended, the air growing damp and heavy, laced with that familiar metallic tang from the library wing. The cellar was a maze of crumbling arches, but the map led them to a stone door, its surface carved with spirals and a single phrase in English, "Only the chosen may enter." Emma's skin prickled. "That's me, I guess," she muttered, pressing her hand to the door. It rumbled open, revealing a vault smaller than the last, its walls lined with stone tablets, each etched with Vorn's script. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, another glowing page, its edges pulsing like a heartbeat. Emma stepped forward, Henry close behind, but a low hum filled the room, and the tablets began to vibrate, their symbols glowing faintly. "Okay, that's not creepy," Emma said, her voice tight, but she didn't stop, her hand closing on the page. The text was dense, unreadable, but one line stood out. "The chosen will see the truth and lose themselves." Emma's breath caught. Lose themselves. The treatise's ideas, free will as a lie, reality as a design, were starting to feel less like philosophy and more like a curse. She turned to Henry, holding up the page. "This is it," she said. "Another piece. But what's it trying to tell me? Why me?" Henry's eyes were on the tablets, his face grim. "It's Vorn's endgame," he said. "The treatise doesn't just explain reality. It claims to control it. The chosen, you're a catalyst meant to bring it to light or bury it forever." He paused, his voice dropping. "The guardians want it buried. They'll kill to keep it that way." Emma's heart pounded, but before she could respond, a new voice cut through the vault, smooth and commanding. "You're closer than most, Miss Watson, but not close enough." She spun, her flashlight catching a figure in the doorway, not cloaked like the others, but dressed in a tailored suit, his face sharp and ageless, like he'd stepped out of a painting. He smiled, but it was cold, predatory. "I'm Gideon," he said, his voice dripping with authority. "Leader of the Guardians. And you're holding something that doesn't belong to you." Emma's grip tightened on the page, her fear hardening into defiance. "Doesn't belong to you either, Gideon," she said, her voice steady. "You've got Jacob, Laura, maybe Henry's daughter. Let them go or this page burns." Gideon's smile didn't waver. "Bold," he said, stepping closer, his presence filling the room. "But misguided. The treatise isn't just words. It's power. You've felt it, haven't you? The whispers, the pull? You're part of it, Emma, whether you like it or not. He gestured to the tablets. Give me the page and I'll spare your friends. Resist and they die, starting with the journalist. Emma's stomach lurched, Jacob's bruised face flashing in her mind. She glanced at Henry, who was frozen, his eyes locked on Gideon. Don't do it, Emma, Henry said, his voice low. He's lying. They'll kill them anyway. Gideon's eyes narrowed, and he snapped his fingers. 2 cloaked guardians appeared, dragging a bound figure into the vault. Emma's heart stopped. It was Laura, her face bruised, her eyes wide with fear. Emma! Laura gasped, her voice hoarse. Don't give it to him. It's not what you think. Emma's resolve wavered, but she held the page tight, her mind racing. Gideon's offer was a trap, but Laura's life was on the line. Why should I trust you? She asked, her voice shaking. You've been hunting me, wrecking my life. What's so dangerous about this truth? Gideon's smile faded, his eyes cold. Because it unravels everything, he said. Free will choice, it's a comforting lie. The treatise proves it's all scripted, and you're the proof, Emma. Your name, your face, they're in Vorn's design written centuries ago. Give me the page and you can walk away, live your little life. Keep it and you'll lose more than your friends. Emma's skin crawled, the photo of her doppelganger burning in her memory. She wanted to scream, to tear the page apart, but Laura's ragged breathing anchored her. I'm not your pawn, she said, her voice fierce. She backed toward Henry, her eyes on the tunnel behind the pedestal. The map had shown an escape route, a narrow passage. She just needed a distraction. Henry seemed to read her mind, grabbing a tablet from the wall and hurling it at Gideon. Run! He shouted, shoving Emma toward the tunnel. Laura screamed as the guardians lunged, but Emma didn't look back, clutching the page as she dove into the passage, Henry behind her. The tunnel was tight, the air stale, but they ran, the guardians' footsteps echoing. The passage spit them out in a forest, the manor a shadow in the distance, and Emma's lungs burned as they stumbled to a stop. Her phone buzzed, a new text. You've chosen poorly. A photo followed, Jacob, bloodied, a blade at his throat. Emma's knees buckled, guilt crashing over her. I left her, she whispered, her voice breaking. Laura, I left her with him. Henry grabbed her shoulder, his face grim. You had no choice, Emma, he said. Gideon's playing you. That page, it's worth more than he's letting on. We need to decode it, find the next vault. It's the only way to fight back. Emma nodded, her resolve stealing, but doubt gnawed at her. Gideon's words, you're part of it, echoed, and the page's warning, lose themselves, felt like a prophecy. As they moved deeper into the forest, her phone buzzed again, a final message. The final key is in your past. Her heart sank. The photo, her name, Vorn's design, it was all tied to her. And the next vault would demand more than courage. It would demand everything. What she didn't see as they vanished into the trees was Gideon watching from the manor, holding a tablet with her name etched in ancient stone, smiling like he'd already won. Emma Watson's breath came in ragged gasps as she stumbled through the forest, the treatise page clutched in her bloodied hand. Professor Henry a step behind. The manor's shadow faded behind them, but Gideon's voice, you're part of it, clung to her like damp earth. The image of Laura, bruised and bound, and Jacob, a blade at his throat, burned in her mind, each a weight heavier than the manuscript in her bag. The guardian's last text, the final key is in your past, was a riddle that cut deep, pointing to the photo of her doppelganger, the spiral symbols, her name scrawled in ancient ink. The forest was silent, but Emma felt watched. Every snap of a twig a reminder that the guardians were never far. Henry's arm was still bleeding through his makeshift bandage, his face pale but set. We need to keep moving, Emma, he said, his voice low, urgent. The next vault, it's our only shot to turn this around. He pointed to the glowing page, its words, the chosen will see the truth and lose themselves. A warning that felt more like a sentence. Emma stopped, her boots sinking into the mud. Turn it around? She said, her voice sharp, raw. Laura's with Gideon, Jacob's probably bleeding out, and you're still playing scholar. She held up the page, her hand shaking. This says I'll lose myself, Henry. And that text, my past? It's not just a clue. It's personal. She pulled the photo from her pocket, the one of her look-alike in ancient Oxford robes, and shoved it at him. Explain this. Why's my face in a photo from centuries ago? Henry's eyes widened as he studied the photo, his fingers tracing the red circle around her doppelganger's face. This is old, he said. his voice barely above a whisper. Prevorn maybe. If it's your bloodline, Emma, it means you're tied to the treatise deeper than we thought. He looked up, his eyes haunted. The Guardians know it. That's why they're not killing you. You're the key. Emma's stomach churned. The key. The chosen. Vorn's words, free will as a lie, reality as a design, were starting to feel like chains. She wanted to scream, to burn the page and run, but Jacob and Laura were counting on her. And the photo's eerie twin stared back, demanding answers. Fine, she said, her voice cold. Then we dig into my past. But if you're holding out, Henry, I'll bury you myself. He nodded, but his silence was heavy, like he was weighing secrets. They trekked to a nearby village, finding a rundown inn where Henry knew the owner, a gruff woman who didn't ask questions. Inside, the room was cramped, the air thick with dust, but it was safe for now. Emma spread the photo, the page, and the manuscript on a wobbly table, her mind racing. The text about her past pointed to her family, but she'd never dug into her roots. Her parents were gone. Her childhood a blur of boarding schools and auditions. If there was a connection to Vorn, to Oxford, it was buried deep. Henry pulled a laptop from his bag. Its screen cracked but functional. Let's start with what we know, he said, typing furiously. Your family, any ties to Oxford, to scholars, anything. He glanced at the photo. This woman, she's not just a look-alike. She's a clue. Emma's phone buzzed and she flinched, expecting another Guardian taunt. It was an email, no sender, just a single line. Look to your mother's shadow. Her heart skipped. Her mother, dead since she was a kid, had been a lawyer, not a scholar, but she'd studied at Oxford briefly. Emma's memories of her were fuzzy, all soft hands and bedtime stories, but the email felt like a shove. She showed it to Henry, her voice tight. My mother, she said. They're pointing me to her. Why? Henry's fingers froze on the keyboard. If your mother was here, he said, she might have crossed paths with the Guardians or Vorn's legacy. We need records, archives, anything tying her to Oxford. He pulled up a database, his hands shaking slightly, and Emma wondered if it was fear or something else. As Henry searched, Emma's mind drifted, the treatise's words pulling her back to a memory she'd buried. She was 8, maybe 9, in her mother's study, sneaking a look at a locked box her mother kept hidden. She'd never opened it, but the box had a spiral carved into its lid, just like the library door. Her mother had caught her, her face pale, and said, "Some things aren't for you, Emma." Not yet. The memory hit like a punch and Emma's breath caught. That box, she said, her voice shaking. My mother had something, a box with the spiral. It's in storage back in London. Henry's eyes lit up. That's it, he said. If it's tied to Vorn, it could be the final key. We need to get it. But his excitement felt off, too eager, and Jacob's warning echoed. Don't trust him. Before Emma could respond, a knock at the door made her jump. Henry motioned for silence, grabbing a letter opener from the table. Who's there? He called, his voice low. A woman's voice answered, soft but firm. It's Sarah, Henry. Let me in. Henry's face relaxed, but Emma's didn't. He opened the door, revealing a woman in her 30s, her dark hair tied back, her eyes sharp with a mix of worry and resolve. She carried a satchel, its leather worn, and her gaze locked on Emma. You're Emma Watson, Sarah said, her accent faintly American. I'm Sarah Colton, archivist. Henry called me about the treatise. She glanced at the table, her eyes lingering on the photo. You're in deep, aren't you? Emma's guard went up. Another ally, another risk. How do you know Henry? She asked, her voice cold. And why should I trust you? Sarah's lips twitched, almost a smile. You shouldn't, she said. But I've been tracking the Guardians for years. They ruined my family, same as they're trying to ruin you. She opened her satchel, pulling out a notebook filled with sketches of spirals, names, and dates. Your mother, she was in Oxford in the 80s. She crossed the Guardians and they never forgot her. Emma's heart pounded. You knew my mother? She asked, stepping closer, her voice shaking. What did she do? Sarah's eyes softened. Not new, she said. Researched. Your mother, Eleanor, she found a piece of the treatise, a fragment. She hid it, kept it from the Guardians. That photo, it's not you. It's her ancestor, maybe Vorn's own blood. You're carrying her fight, Emma, whether you want to or not. Emma's knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, the photo's weight crushing. Her mother part of this? It explained the box, the spiral, but it made the treatise's claim you're part of it feel like a noose. She looked at Sarah, then Henry, her voice barely a whisper. If my mother fought them, why didn't she tell me? Because she wanted you safe, Sarah said, her voice gentle but firm. But the Guardians don't forget. That box, it's your next step. I can help you get it, but we need to move fast. They're closing in. Emma nodded, her resolve hardening, but Sarah's arrival felt too neat, like another Guardian play. As they planned to retrieve the box, Emma's phone buzzed again, a new text. The archivist lies. Her blood ran cold. Sarah was still talking, her notebook open, but Emma's eyes locked on her satchel, where a faint spiral symbol was stitched into the leather. Trust was a trap, and the ghosts of her past were rising, ready to swallow her whole. The box was her only lead, but as they left the inn, the treatise page in her bag seemed to pulse, and Emma swore she heard a whisper. You were chosen, but at what cost? Emma Watson's heart pounded as she sat in the back of Sarah's van, the Oxford countryside blurring past, the treatise page in manuscript heavy in her bag. The text from an unknown number, the archivist lies, burned in her mind, and Sarah's satchel, with its faint spiral symbol, felt like a warning carved in stone. Professor Henry sat beside her, his face grim, his bandaged arm a reminder of their narrow escape from the manor. The box from Emma's mother, locked with a spiral and hidden in a London storage unit, was their next lead, a thread tying Emma's past to Vaughan's cursed treatise. But trust was a minefield, and every ally, Henry, Sarah, even Jacob, still held by the Guardians, felt like a potential traitor. The treatise's words, the chosen will see the truth and lose themselves, echoed, and Emma wondered if she was already losing. Sarah's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, catching Emma's gaze. You're quiet, Emma, she said, her voice steady but probing. Second thoughts about the box? Or about me? Her lips twitched like she knew Emma's doubts. Emma's jaw tightened. Let's just say I'm cautious, Sarah, she said, her voice cold. People around me keep getting hurt, and I'm tired of surprises. She leaned forward, her hand brushing the photo of her doppelganger, her mother's ancestor. You say my mom fought the Guardians. Fine. But that symbol on your bag, it's the same one they use. Explain that. Sarah's fingers tightened on the wheel, but her face stayed calm. Sharp eyes, she said. My family's been tangled with the Guardians for generations. That symbol, it's a mark of defiance, not loyalty. They branded us, Emma, same as they're branding you. She glanced at Henry, who was silent, his eyes on his phone. Ask him. He knows my history. Henry looked up, his face unreadable. Sarah's clean, Emma, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Her family's been hunting the treatise longer than you've been alive. But she's right about one thing, we're all marked. He held up his phone, showing a text. Deliver her or she dies. My daughter, Emma. They're not letting up. Emma's stomach churned. Henry's daughter, Jacob, Laura. All pawns in the Guardians' game. She wanted to believe Sarah, to trust Henry, but the text about the archivist gnawed at her. We get the box, she said, her voice firm. Then we figure out who's playing who. No more secrets. Deal. Sarah nodded, but Henry's silence was heavy, like he was holding back. The van pulled into London, the city's hum a stark contrast to Oxford's quiet menace. The storage unit was in a grimy industrial park, its gates rusted but locked. Emma's pulse quickened as they approached, the spiral-carved box waiting like a ghost from her childhood. Sarah picked the lock with practiced ease, and inside, the unit was a maze of crates, but Emma's eyes locked on a small wooden box, its lid etched with the spiral, just as she remembered. Her hands shook as she opened it, revealing a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed, and a single key, its handle shaped like a spiral. The journal was her mother's, filled with cramped handwriting and sketches of symbols matching the treatise. Emma's breath caught as she read the first page. If you're reading this, Emma, I'm sorry. I tried to keep you safe, but the truth finds us all. Her mother had known, had fought, and had hidden this for her. This changes everything, Emma said, her voice breaking. She flipped through the journal, finding a passage about a second vault, not in Oxford but in London, beneath an old church. The key, it's for that, she said, holding it up. My mom found it, hid it. She looked at Sarah, then Henry. We're going there. Now. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Risky, she said. The Guardians will be watching. Your mother's journal, it's a beacon. They'll know you have it. Let them, Emma said, her voice fierce. They've got Jacob, Laura, maybe your daughter, Henry. I'm done running. She stuffed the journal and key in her bag. But as they left the unit, her phone buzzed, a new text. Your predictable chosen. A photo followed, Emma, Sarah, and Henry entering the storage unit, taken from above. Her blood ran cold. They're here, she said, her voice shaking. Move. They sprinted to the van, but tires screeched nearby, and a black SUV blocked their path. Gideon stepped out, his suit pristine, his smile cold. You're making this too easy, Miss Watson, he said, his voice smooth. The journal, the key, hand them over. Or your journalist friend stops breathing. Emma's heart pounded, Jacob's bruised face flashing in her mind. She clutched the bag, her eyes darting for an escape. You're not getting shit, Gideon, she said, her voice steady despite the fear. You want to fight, you've got one. She glanced at Sarah, who nodded slightly, her hand slipping into her satchel. Gideon sighed, snapping his fingers. 2 cloaked guardians appeared, blades drawn, and chaos erupted. Sarah pulled a taser from her bag, hitting one guardian, while Henry tackled the other, his injured arm slowing him. Emma ran for the van, Gideon's eyes locked on her, but a new figure emerged from the shadows, a woman in a hood, her face hidden. She threw a smoke bomb, the air clouding, and grabbed Emma's arm. Come with me, she hissed, her voice familiar but unplaceable. Now. Emma hesitated, but Gideon's shout, stop her, pushed her forward. She followed the woman through the smoke, Henry and Sarah lost in the chaos, and they ducked into an alley, the woman moving fast, silent. Who are you? Emma demanded, her voice shaking. But the woman didn't answer, leading her to an abandoned warehouse. Inside, she pulled off her hood, revealing Laura, her face bruised but alive. Emma's knees buckled. Laura, she gasped, her voice breaking. You're alive? How? She reached for her, but Laura stepped back, her eyes haunted. Not for long, Laura said, her voice hoarse. Gideon let me go to trap you. The journal, Emma, it's a setup. The vault's real, but it's rigged. She coughed, blood flecking her lips, and Emma's heart sank. They're framing you, she said. The news, vandalism, now theft. They're saying you stole relics from Oxford. Emma's blood ran cold. The Guardians weren't just hunting her. They were building a cage. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. Emma Watson wanted for artifact theft. Her face was plastered everywhere. A criminal in the eyes of the world. Laura grabbed her hand, her grip weak. The vault, it's your only shot, she said. But you need to know the treatise, it's not just words. It's alive, Emma. It wrote you. Emma's skin prickled, the journal's weight crushing. Wrote me? She said, her voice shaking. What does that mean? But before Laura could answer, the warehouse door crashed open, and Gideon's voice cut through the dark. Time's up, chosen, he said, his smile audible. Emma clutched the journal, the key, the page, and ran, Laura stumbling beside her. But the treatise's words echoed, lose themselves. As they fled into the night, Emma saw a page in the journal flutter open, and her own handwriting stared back, predicting her escape word for word. The vault was close, but so was the truth, and it was tearing her apart. Emma Watson's lungs burned as she and Laura sprinted through the London night, the warehouse's echo of Gideon's voice, time's up, chosen, chasing them like a shadow. The journal, key, and treatise page weighed heavy in her bag, each a piece of a puzzle that was tearing her world apart. Laura's words, the treatise wrote you, rang in her head, and the sight of her own handwriting in her mother's journal, predicting her every move, felt like a betrayal from within. The Guardians were framing her as a thief, her face plastered across news feeds, and Jacob was still out there, a blade at his throat. The vault beneath the old church was her last shot, but the treatise's warning, the chosen will see the truth and lose themselves, loomed like a cliff she was already falling from. Laura stumbled, her bruised face pale, her breath ragged. Emma grabbed her arm, pulling her into an alley, the city's pulse a distant hum. You okay? Emma asked, her voice sharp with worry. Laura nodded, but her eyes were haunted, blood still flecking her lips from Gideon's torture. Not really, Laura said, her voice hoarse. They let me go to lure you, Emma. The vault, it's real, but it's a trap. The treatise, it's not just a book. It's alive, choosing you, writing you. She coughed, leaning against the wall, and Emma's heart twisted. You need to get there, she said, but don't trust anyone. Not Sarah, not Henry. Emma's stomach churned. Henry and Sarah, lost in the storage unit chaos, were either captured or complicit, and Jacob's warning, don't trust him, still stung. I don't trust anyone, Emma said, her voice cold. But you're here, Laura. Help me get to that vault. We save Jacob, we end this. She pulled the journal from her bag, flipping to the page about the church. The key's spiral gleamed in the faint streetlight, a match for the vault's lock. Laura nodded, her resolve hardening. It's not far, she said. But Gideon's close. He's always close. They moved, sticking to shadows, the city's neon glow a stark contrast to the darkness swallowing Emma's mind. The church was a crumbling relic, its spire jagged against the sky, and the journal's map led to a crypt entrance, hidden behind a rusted gate. Emma's pulse quickened as she pushed it open, the air thick with damp stone and that metallic tang from the library wing. The crypt was a maze of coffins and cobwebs, but the journal's directions were clear, guiding them to a stone slab etched with a spiral. Emma inserted the key, her hands shaking, and the slab rumbled, revealing a staircase descending into blackness. Laura grabbed her arm, her grip weak but urgent. Be careful, Emma, she said. The treatise, it changes you. I saw it in Gideon's eyes. He's not just guarding it. He's part of it. Emma's skin prickled, but she nodded, leading the way down. The vault was smaller than the others, its walls lined with mirrors, each reflecting Emma's face back at her, distorted, accusing. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it a single book, its cover pulsing with the spiral symbol, glowing like a living thing. Emma's breath caught. The treatise, complete or close to it. She stepped forward, but the mirrors flickered, and for a split second she swore she saw her mother's face, then her doppelganger's staring back. This is it, Emma said, her voice trembling, reaching for the book. But a voice cut through the vault, cold and familiar. You're predictable, Miss Watson, Gideon said, stepping from a hidden alcove, his suit pristine, his smile ablade. The book stays here. So do you. Emma spun, clutching the book, Laura at her side. You're out of moves, Gideon, she said, her voice fierce. I've got the treatise, the key, everything. Let Jacob go or I burn it. She held up the book, her hand steady despite the fear clawing her chest. Gideon laughed, a sound that chilled her bones. Burn it, he said, stepping closer, his eyes glinting in the mirror light. You're written in it, Emma. Every choice, every step Vorn saw you centuries ago. You're not fighting us. You're fulfilling us. He gestured to the mirrors and Emma's reflection shifted, showing her mother, her doppelganger, a line of women stretching back through time, all tied to the spiral. Emma's knees buckled, but Laura caught her, her voice a whisper. Don't listen, Emma. He's twisting it. The treatise, its power, but you're not his puppet. Emma nodded, her resolve steeling, but Gideon's words hit hard. The journal, her handwriting predicting her escape, the photo, it all pointed to a script she couldn't escape. Give me the book, Gideon said, his voice soft, almost kind, and I'll spare your friends. Resist and they die along with the world's illusions. The guardians are everywhere, Emma. Governments, corporations, we shape the lie of freedom. You can't win. Emma's heart pounded, Jacob's bruised face flashing in her mind. She glanced at Laura, whose eyes were fierce despite her weakness. No deal, Emma said, her voice steady. You want it, come get it. She backed toward a mirror, the journal's map showing a hidden exit behind it. Laura moved with her, but Gideon snapped his fingers, and two cloaked guardians appeared, blades drawn. Chaos erupted. Laura grabbed a loose stone, hurling it at one guardian, while Emma swung her bag, the manuscript's weight knocking the other's blade aside. They reached the mirror, Emma smashing it with the key, revealing a tunnel. Go, she shouted, pushing Laura through, but Gideon lunged, his hand closing on the book. Emma pulled back, the cover tearing, and a single page fell, glowing brighter than the rest. Emma grabbed it, diving into the tunnel, Laura ahead, Gideon's shout echoing behind. The tunnel was tight, the air stale, but they ran, emerging in a sewer, the city's underbelly swallowing them. Emma's hand shook as she opened the torn page, its text unreadable except for one line, in her own handwriting. The chosen will face the final vault, and the truth will break them. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't Vorn's script. It was hers, written in a trance she couldn't remember. Laura's eyes widened, her voice shaking. Emma, you wrote that? She asked, her face pale. The treatise, it's using you like it used Vorn. We need to destroy it. Emma's mind reeled, the mirror's reflections, her mother, her doppelganger, all part of a design. Destroy it? She said, her voice breaking. It's got Jacob's life, your life, maybe Henry's daughter. And my mom, she fought for this. She clutched the page, the book, her resolve fraying. The final vault, it's close, Laura. We finish this or we lose everything. Laura nodded, but her eyes were distant, like she saw something Emma didn't. They moved through the sewer, the journal's map pointing to a final vault beneath London's heart. But Emma's phone buzzed, a new text. You're already ours. A photo followed Sarah holding the torn book cover, her eyes cold, a guardian's blade at her side. Emma's heart sank. Sarah, the archivist, was one of them, and the final vault was waiting, ready to swallow her whole. The treatise's whisper echoed. You were chosen, but the truth was a blade and Emma was bleeding. Emma Watson's boots sloshed through the sewer's muck, the treatise's torn page clutched in her hand, its words in her own handwriting. The chosen will face the final vault, and the truth will break them, burning like a brand. Laura limped beside her, her bruised face pale, her breath ragged from Gideon's torture. The betrayal of Sarah, the archivist, stung deep, her cold eyes in the guardian's photo a fresh wound. Jacob was still out there, a blade at his throat, and Henry, maybe a traitor, maybe a father fighting for his daughter, was lost in the chaos. The journal, key, and manuscript weighed heavy in Emma's bag, each a piece of a puzzle that was unraveling her. The final vault, beneath London's heart, was their last shot, but the treatise's whisper, you were chosen, felt like a noose tightening with every step. The sewer stench was suffocating, but Emma's focus was on the journal's map, its lines pointing to a vault under an ancient guildhall. Laura's voice broke the silence, hoarse but urgent. Emma, you can't trust that book, she said, her eyes on the torn page. It's not just Vaughan's. You wrote it somehow. It's controlling you. Emma's stomach churned, the mirrors from the last vault flashing in her mind. Her mother, her doppelganger, a line of women tied to the spiral. I'm not controlled, she said, her voice fierce but shaky. I'm fighting for you, for Jacob, for my mom's truth. She held up the key, its spiral gleaming. This opens the vault. We get the treatise, we end this. But Laura's doubt mirrored her own. And the page's prophecy, the truth will break them, gnawed at her resolve. They reached a rusted grate, the guildhall's underbelly above. Emma pried it open, her cut palm stinging, and they climbed into a stone corridor, its walls etched with spirals that pulsed faintly, like the treatise itself was alive. The air was thick, metallic, and Emma's skin prickled as they followed the map to a massive door, its surface carved with a spiral lock. She inserted the key, her heart pounding, and the door groaned open, revealing a vault unlike the others. Its ceiling was a dome of stained glass, casting fractured light over stone pillars, each engraved with Vaughan's script. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it the complete treatise, its cover glowing, its pages humming with power. Emma's breath caught. That's it, she said, stepping forward, but Laura grabbed her arm, her grip weak but desperate. Wait, Emma, she said. Look at the pillars. They're traps like the last vault. Emma's flashlight swept the room, catching symbols on the floor, a maze of spirals and blank stones. One wrong step could crush them. She studied the journal, its cipher matching the pillar's script. Move with me, she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. They stepped carefully, Emma leading, each spiral tile clicking underfoot. Halfway across, a low rumble shook the vault, and a pillar shifted, revealing a hidden alcove. Gideon stepped out, his suit pristine, his smile cold, flanked by two cloaked guardians. Sarah was with them, her eyes empty, the torn book cover in her hand. You're persistent, Miss Watson, Gideon said, his voice smooth, but you're late. The treatise is ours, and so are you. He gestured to the pedestal, the book's glow intensifying. It wrote you, Emma. Every choice, every loss, it's all here. Give up and your friends live. Fight and they die with you. Emma's heart pounded, Jacob's bruised face, Laura's bloodied cap, her mother's journal flashing in her mind. You're a liar, Gideon, she said, her voice fierce. You need me alive or you'd have killed me already. She clutched the torn page, her own handwriting a betrayal. What's the treatise really do? Why's it worth all this? Gideon's smile faded, his eyes glinting. It's reality, he said. Vaughan didn't just write truth. He shaped it. The treatise binds the chosen, makes their will its own. You're its vessel, Emma, the final piece. With you we control the script, the world. Without you it's chaos. He stepped closer, his voice soft. Join us or watch them burn. Laura's hand tightened on Emma's arm, her voice a whisper. Don't, Emma. He's scared. The treatise, it's breaking free. Emma's eyes locked on the book, its hum louder now like a heartbeat. She took another step, Laura following, the tiles clicking, but Gideon snapped his fingers, and the guardians lunged, blades flashing. Emma dodged, pulling Laura behind a pillar, the treatise's glow lighting their path. Sarah moved too, her taser sparking, but her aim was off, grazing a guardian instead of Emma. Traitor! Gideon snarled and Sarah flinched, her eyes flickering with something, regret, maybe fear. Emma didn't care. She sprinted for the pedestal, the tiles a blur, and grabbed the treatise, its cover hot, alive. The moment she touched it, the vault shook, the stained glass above cracking, light pouring in like judgment. The book opened on its own, pages flipping to a passage in English. The chosen will wield or fall. Emma's breath caught. Her handwriting was there, scrawled in the margins, naming her Laura, Jacob, even Gideon, like she'd scripted this moment. Her mind reeled, the mirror's reflections, her mother, her doppelganger, merging with Vaughn's words. She was the vessel, but she wasn't broken, not yet. Gideon roared, charging, but Emma swung the book, its weight knocking him back. Laura hurled a stone, slowing a guardian, but Sarah was on her, taser raised. Emma tackled Sarah, the archivist's strength surprising, and they hit the floor, the torn page slipping free. Sarah grabbed it, her eyes wild, and ran for Gideon, but a pillar shifted, crushing her path, and she screamed, trapped. Emma scrambled up, the treatise in her hands, Laura at her side. The vault's exit, a hidden tunnel behind the pedestal, was open, the journal's map true. Run! Emma shouted, pulling Laura through. Gideon's curses echoing. The tunnel was narrow, the air thick, but they emerged in a subway tunnel, the city's rumble above. Emma's hands shook as she opened the treatise, its pages glowing, her handwriting everywhere, predicting her escape, her fight, her fear. Laura's voice was faint, her body slumping. Emma, she said, you can't keep it. It's too much. Destroy it or it destroys you. Emma's heart tore, Jacob's life, her mother's fight, the truth itself on the line. The treatise was power, but it was a cage, and her choice was coming. Her phone buzzed, a final text. The final vault is you. Her blood ran cold. Gideon was still out there, Sarah's betrayal fresh, and the treatise's script was tightening, but Emma wasn't done. The truth was breaking her, but she'd wield it first or die trying. Emma Watson's hands trembled as she clutched the treatise, its glowing pages heavy with her own handwriting, a script that named her every move. The subway tunnel's damp air clung to her skin. Laura slumped against the wall, her bruised face pale, her breath shallow. The final vault's chaos, Gideon's cold smile, Sarah's betrayal, the book's pulsing power, still roared in Emma's mind. The treatise's words, the chosen will wield or fall, were a blade at her throat, and the last text, the final vault is you, was a riddle she couldn't escape. Jacob was still out there, a guardian's blade at his neck, and Henry, maybe a traitor, maybe a father, was lost. The world saw Emma as a thief, her name smeared across headlines, but the truth was heavier. She was the treatise's vessel, written into its design centuries ago. Laura's voice, weak but urgent, cut through the dark. Emma, you can't keep carrying it, she said, her eyes fixed on the treatise. It's not just a book. It's you, your choices, your pain. Destroy it or it'll destroy everyone. Her hand shook, pointing to the glowing pages, where Emma's handwriting predicted their escape, word for word. Emma's heart twisted, the weight of Laura's words crushing. Destroy it? She said, her voice breaking. Jacob's life's tied to this, maybe Henry's daughter, my mom's fight. She flipped open the treatise, its script pulsing, her mother's face from the vault's mirrors flashing in her mind. Her doppelganger, her bloodline, all part of Vaughn's design. It's power, Laura, she said. If I wield it, I can stop Gideon, save them. Laura's eyes darkened, her voice a whisper. That's what he wants, Emma. Gideon's not just guarding it. He's waiting for you to break, to give him control. She coughed, blood flecking her lips, and Emma's resolve wavered, guilt crashing over her for dragging Laura into this. Emma's phone buzzed, a new text from an unknown number. Bring the treatise to the river or he dies. A photo followed, Jacob bloodied, his eyes wide with fear, a cloaked guardian behind him. Her stomach lurched, but another message came, this one from Henry. I'm alive. Meet me at the guild hall. Don't trust Laura. Her blood ran cold. Laura, pale and trembling, was watching her, and Henry's warning echoed Jacob's. Don't trust him. Everyone was a liar and Emma was drowning in their games. We need to move, Emma said, helping Laura stand, her voice firm despite the chaos in her chest. The river, that's where they want me. But the Guildhall, Henry's there. We get Jacob, we find Henry, we end this. She stuffed the treatise in her bag, its glow seeping through the fabric, and led Laura through the subway tunnel, the journal's map guiding them to a surface exit near the Thames. The city was alive, its lights glaring, but Emma felt like a ghost, her face on every newsstand. Wanted, Emma Watson, artifact thief. The Guardians had turned her into a criminal, and the treatise's script was tightening its grip. They reached the riverbank, the water black and restless, and Emma's pulse spiked as she saw a figure waiting, a cloaked guardian, Jacob kneeling at their feet, a blade at his throat. Emma! Jacob shouted, his voice hoarse, his face bruised but defiant. Don't give it to them. It's a trap. The guardian pressed the blade closer, silencing him, and Emma's heart pounded, her hand on the treatise. Let him go. She shouted, stepping forward, Laura at her side. I've got what you want. Take it and leave him. Her voice was steady but her mind raced, the treatise's weight a tether to her fate. Gideon emerged from the shadows, his suit untouched by the river's damp, his smile cold. You're learning, Miss Watson, he said, his voice smooth. The treatise now, and your friend walks. Defy me and he drowns. He gestured to the water and Emma's skin prickled. The books hummed louder, like it was urging her to act. Laura grabbed her arm, her voice low. Emma, don't, she said. They'll kill him anyway. The treatise, it's rewriting you. Look at your hands. Emma glanced down, her breath catching. Her fingers were smudged with ink, her handwriting fresh, as if she'd been writing in her sleep. The treatise was alive and she was its pen. Gideon's eyes glinted, sensing her hesitation. You're part of it, Emma, he said. Your mother knew, tried to hide you. But Vorn's script always finds its chosen. Give me the book or I'll take it from your corpse. He nodded and the guardian yanked Jacob's head back, the blade drawing blood. Emma's resolve cracked, but a shout broke the tension. Henry, his arm bleeding through his bandage, charged from the shadows, swinging a pipe at the guardian. Jacob twisted free, tackling the cloaked figure, and Emma ran, dragging Laura, the treatise clutched tight. Gideon roared, more guardians appearing, their blades flashing in the streetlights. To the Guildhall, Henry shouted, leading them through alleys, the river's roar fading. Emma's lungs burned, the treatise's hum a pulse in her veins, her handwriting in its margins a haunting echo. They reached the Guildhall, its doors ajar, and slipped inside, the silence oppressive. Henry barred the door, his face pale, his eyes on Laura. She's one of them, Emma, he said, his voice low. The guardians let her go too easily. Check her. Emma's heart sank, Laura's pale face suddenly unreadable. What? She said, her voice shaking, stepping back. Laura, tell me he's wrong. But Laura's eyes flickered and she lunged, grabbing for the treatise. Emma dodged, her heart breaking, and Henry tackled Laura, pinning her. I had to, Emma, Laura gasped, her voice breaking. They have my brother. I didn't want this. Her eyes were wet, but Emma's trust was shattered. The treatise's script predicting even this betrayal. Jacob, bruised but standing, grabbed Emma's arm. We need to move, he said, his voice rough. Gideon's coming. The vault, it's here, right? Emma nodded, the journal's map clear in her mind, but the treatise's weight was crushing, its pages alive with her words. She opened it, finding a new passage, her handwriting fresh. The chosen will choose and the world will shift. The Guildhall's basement led to the final vault, its door already open, the spiral lock glowing. Inside, a single mirror stood, reflecting Emma's face, her mother's, her doppelganger's, all one. The treatise pulsed, and Gideon's voice echoed from the shadows. You can't escape it, Emma, he said, stepping into the light, his eyes feverish. You're the script. Choose me or choose chaos. Emma's heart pounded, Jacob and Henry at her side. Laura's betrayal a fresh wound. The treatise was power, but it was her choices, her pain. She held it up, her voice fierce. I choose neither, Gideon, she said, and tore a page, its glow fading. The mirror cracked and Gideon screamed, lunging, but the vault shook, the script unraveling. Emma ran, Jacob and Henry behind. The treatise still hers, but its hold weakening. Her phone buzzed, a final text. You've begun the end. The world was shifting and Emma was its spark, but the cost was coming, and she wasn't ready. Emma Watson's heart thundered as she sprinted through the Guildhall's basement, the treatise clutched in her hands, its glow dimmer now, weakened by the torn page. Jacob and Professor Henry ran beside her, their breaths ragged, the echo of Gideon's scream still ringing from the final vault. Laura's betrayal, her desperate grab for the book to save her brother, cut deeper than any guardian's blade. The mirror's crack, the treatise's script unraveling, had shaken the vault, but Gideon was still coming, his voice a promise of ruin. The last text, "You've begun the end," burned in Emma's mind, and the treatise's words, "The chosen will choose, and the world will shift," felt like a prophecy she'd ignited but couldn't control. Her face was on every newsfeed, branded a thief, and the Guardian's machine was tightening its grip. The basement's stone corridors twisted, the journal's map useless now, its pages spent. Emma's boots slipped on damp stone, her cut palm stinging, the treatise's weight a tether to her fate. Jacob, bruised and bloodied, grabbed her arm, his voice rough. "Emma, we need a plan," he said. "Gideon's got more coming. That book, it's a beacon. They'll track it." Emma's eyes flicked to the treatise, its cover still pulsing, her handwriting in its margins a haunting mirror of her choices. "I know," she said, her voice fierce but fraying. "But it's our only leverage. Jacob, your life, Laura's brother, maybe Henry's daughter, it's all tied to this." She glanced at Henry, his face pale, his bandaged arm trembling. "You're still with me, right?" she asked, her voice sharp, Jacob's warning, "Don't trust him," still lingering. Henry's eyes met hers, haunted but steady. "I'm with you, Emma," he said, his voice low. "My daughter's out there. But Jacob's right, the treatise is a magnet. We need somewhere to hide, decode it, figure out what you started." He pointed to a rusted door ahead, the Guildhall's exit to London streets. "There's a safe house not far. We can make it." Emma nodded, but her stomach churned. The safe house felt like another trap, and Laura's betrayal had shattered her trust. They burst onto the street, the city's neon glare blinding after the vault's dark. The air was sharp, rain starting to fall, and Emma's phone buzzed, a new text. "The script is fraying. Return it or they all pay." A photo followed. Laura bound again, her face wet with tears, a cloaked guardian behind her. Emma's heart sank, guilt crashing over her for leaving her in the vault. "They're using her," Emma said, her voice shaking, showing Jacob and Henry the photo. "We need to save her, but the treatise, it's the key." She opened it, the pages flickering, her handwriting fading in places, like the torn page had broken its hold. A new passage caught her eye, in English. "The chosen will sever the script or become it." Her skin prickled. Sever the script. Was that what she'd done, tearing the page? Or was she still Vorn's puppet? Jacob's voice cut through her thoughts, urgent. "Emma, move," he said, pulling her into an alley as headlights flashed. A black SUV, like the one at the storage unit. Guardians. They ducked behind a dumpster, Henry's breath ragged, his eyes scanning the street. "The safe house is 2 blocks," he whispered. "We can lose them." They ran, weaving through alleys, the rain soaking Emma's coat, the treatise's glow seeping through her bag. The safe house was a nondescript flat above a shuttered shop, its door unlocked as if waiting. Inside, the air was stale, the walls bare, but it was shelter. Emma spread the treatise on a rickety table, its pages still alive, her handwriting a mix of prophecy and confession. Jacob paced, his bruises stark in the dim light, while Henry checked the windows, his face grim. "We need to know what's next," Emma said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "The treatise, it's changing because of me." She pointed to the fading script, her torn pages' absence a wound in the book. "If I can sever it like it says, maybe we stop Gideon, free everyone." Jacob stopped pacing, his eyes hard. "Or maybe you're playing his game, Emma," he said. "That book, it's got your words, your moves. What if tearing it makes it worse?" He gestured to his bruises. "I'm here because you called me. Laura's caught because you wouldn't stop. What's the cost, Emma?" Her throat tightened, Jacob's words a mirror to her guilt. "I didn't choose this, Jacob," she said, her voice breaking. "My name, my mom, it's all in here. I'm trying to fix it." She flipped to the new passage, "Sever the script or become it," and her mother's journal, tucked in her bag, seemed to pulse, its spiral key a reminder of her legacy. Henry's voice broke the tension, low and urgent. "Someone's outside," he said, peering through a crack in the blinds. 2 figures, cloaked. "We're not safe." He grabbed a knife from the kitchen, his hand shaking, and Emma's doubt flared. Was he protecting them or leading the guardians? Before she could confront him, the door crashed open and Sarah stormed in, her eyes wild, a guardian's blade in her hand. "You idiot, Emma," she said, her voice sharp. "You tore the treatise and now it's unstable. Give it to me or the world unravels." Behind her a cloaked figure loomed, but Sarah's stance was unsteady, like she was fighting herself. Emma's heart pounded, her hand on the treatise. "You're one of them, Sarah," she said, her voice cold. "Why should I trust you?" She stepped back, Jacob and Henry flanking her, the room crackling with tension. Sarah's eyes flickered, pain breaking through her mask. She said, her voice breaking. "They had my sister like Henry's daughter. I betrayed you to save her. But the treatise, it's breaking reality. Look outside." Emma glanced at the window, her breath catching. Streetlights flickered, the rain falling upward, the world glitching like a broken screen. Jacob grabbed her arm, his voice low. "Emma, she's right," he said. "Something's wrong. The treatise, it's doing this." He pointed to the book, its glow erratic, pages flipping on their own. Emma opened it, finding her handwriting gone, replaced by chaos. Symbols shifting, sentences bleeding into spirals. Henry lunged at Sarah, his knife raised, but she dodged, her blade grazing his shoulder. "Traitor!" he shouted, but Sarah's eyes were on Emma, pleading. "Give it to me, Emma," she said. "I can stabilize it, save them." But Emma's instincts screamed trap, and she ran, clutching the treatise, Jacob and Henry behind her, Sarah's shout echoing. They burst onto the street, the world warping, buildings bending, voices whispering Vaughn's script. Emma's phone buzzed, a final text. "You are the script. End it." She stopped, the treatise burning in her hands, its pages crumbling. Gideon's voice came from nowhere, everywhere. "Choose, Emma. Wield it or burn it." The river loomed ahead, its water black, and Emma saw her reflection. Not her but her mother, her doppelganger, all the chosen staring back. The treatise was her, and the choice was now. She held it over the water, her heart breaking, Jacob's life, Laura's, the world on the line, and whispered, "I'm not your puppet, Vaughan." But the book's hum was her pulse, and the end was hers to write. Emma Watson stood at the Thames edge, the treatise burning in her hands, its crumbling pages a mirror of the world unraveling around her. The river's black water reflected her mother, her doppelganger, a line of chosen women staring back, their eyes accusing, urging. The city glitched, streetlights pulsing erratically, rain falling upward, buildings bending like paper in the wind. Jacob and Professor Henry flanked her, their faces pale, Sarah's plea, "Give it to me," echoing behind them. Laura's betrayal, Gideon's taunts, the treatise's script. The chosen will sever the script or become it. Swirled in Emma's mind, a storm she couldn't outrun. Her phone's last text, "You are the script. End it," was a command, and Gideon's voice, omnipresent, pressed. "Wield it or burn it." The world was fraying, and Emma's choice would either save it or break it. Jacob grabbed her arm, his bruises stark in the warped light, his voice rough. "Emma, don't do it," he said. "That book, it's you but it's poison. Drop it in the river, end this now." His eyes flicked to the treatise, its glow fading, pages dissolving into ash. Emma's heart tore. Jacob's words clashing with her mother's journal, her fight. "Destroy it," she said, her voice shaking, the book trembling in her grip. "Jacob, it's got your life, Laura's, maybe Henry's daughter. My mom died for this." She opened the treatise, its script chaotic, her handwriting gone, replaced by spirals that seemed to scream. "If I wield it, I can stop Gideon, rewrite this mess." Henry stepped closer, his bandaged arm trembling, his face grim. "You can't wield it, Emma," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Vaughn's script owns you. Sarah was right, it's unstable. Look around." He gestured to the sky where clouds twisted into spirals, the world glitching like a dying machine. "You tore the page, you broke its hold, but it's still tied to you. Let it go." Emma's eyes burned, the treatise's hum her pulse, its weight her guilt. Sarah's voice came from the alley, desperate, her blade dropped, her hands raised. "Emma, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I lied, I served them, but the treatise, it's killing reality. Give it to the river, or we're all gone." Her eyes were wet, her betrayal raw, but Emma saw truth in her fear. The river churned, its surface rippling with her reflection. Not just hers but every chosen, their faces merging. Emma's mind flashed to the vault's mirror, her mother's journal, the photo of her doppelganger. The treatise was her choices, her pain, but it was also Vaughn's cage and Gideon's weapon. Her phone buzzed a new text, choose or they die. A live feed followed. Laura bound, her brother beside her, both gagged, a guardian's blade gleaming. Emma's knees buckled, but she caught herself, fury overtaking fear. Gideon's voice echoed, not from the phone but the air itself. You're mine, Emma, he said, his tone cold, triumphant. The treatise is you and you're its end. Wield it, join me in your friends' life. Destroy it and they burn with the world. His laugh was a blade and Emma saw him, a shadow at the alley's mouth, his suit pristine, his eyes feverish. Emma's grip tightened, the treatise's pages crumbling faster. Ash falling like snow. She looked at Jacob, his defiance her anchor, at Henry, his haunted eyes her warning, at Sarah, her regret her mirror. The world glitched harder. A car nearby melting into the pavement, voices whispering Vaughn's script. She opened the treatise, its final page intact, her handwriting fresh. The chosen will end the script, and the world will breathe. Her breath caught. End the script. Not wield, not become, but end. I'm not yours, Gideon, Emma said, her voice fierce, steady. Not Vaughn's, not the treatise's. She held the book over the river, its glow flickering, her reflection in the water now just her, no ghosts. This ends now. She let go, the treatise falling, its pages dissolving into the Thames, the glow snuffing out like a dying star. The world screamed, a pulse of light exploding from the river. The glitches stopping, the rain falling normally again. Gideon's roar was inhuman, his shadow lunging, but Jacob tackled him. Henry swinging a pipe, Sarah joining, her blade turned on the guardians flooding the alley. Emma ran to the fight, her heart pounding, the treatise gone but its power still in her, her choices her own. Laura's feet cut off, but a new text came. You freed them. Emma's breath hitched, and she saw Laura and her brother stumble from a van, free, bruised but alive. Jacob pinned Gideon, his face bloodied, and Emma knelt beside him, her voice fierce. It's over, Gideon, she said. Your script's done. Gideon's eyes burned, but his smile was gone. You think you've won? He said, his voice weak. The treatise was you, Emma. You'll never escape it. A guardian grabbed him, pulling him into the van, and they sped off, the fight ending as fast as it began. Emma stood, the river calm, the world steady, but her heart was heavy. Jacob hugged her, his voice rough. You did it, Emma, he said, but his eyes were wary, like he saw the cost. Henry nodded, his daughter's fate still unknown. And Sarah, tears streaming, whispered, I'm sorry. Emma's phone buzzed, a final news alert. Emma Watson cleared of charges, artifacts recovered. The Guardian's machine was crumbling, her name clearing, but the treatise's absence left a void. She saw her mother's face in the water, smiling, and her doppelganger's fading. The script was gone, but Emma felt its echo, her choices free but haunted. She walked away, Jacob and Laura at her side, the city waking, unaware of the truth she'd buried. The Guardians were still out there, Gideon's words lingering. You'll never escape it. Emma was no longer the chosen, but the fight wasn't over, and her story, unwritten now, was hers to shape. Thank you for listening to these incredible stories. Our team would really appreciate it if you give us a like and comment. Your opinion is very important to us. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed.